I'm making this video to talk about what's coming up in this next week. We are continuing to talk about management, and you last week looked over the chapters about management overall, talking about organizing, how business is organized, and you look specifically management applied to operations. Um, and if the four pillars of management are, you know, if you take a management class, any management class, you will be reminded of what these four pillars are. But the first one is planning. The second one is organizing, which you've learned about that in chapter 6. The other one is leading, which you're going to learn about this week, and then the last one is called controlling, which we'll talk about in various forms throughout the entire class. So that's basically management. So this next week we're going to look at very specific elements of management um, concerning employee behavior. We're going to talk about leadership and decision making, and then we're going to talk about human resource management. Okay, all very important topics in the overall topic of management. All right. So this week, we got 3 chapters that we're covering, so that's a lot to do. You also have the quizzes, of course, that are due on Friday. Make sure you get those done. And for the first time in class, we're going to have a motivation. I'm sorry, we're going to have an assignment that we do. There's only a few of those we're going to do in this entire class, but this is one of them that's coming up. I'll show you where that is in content. I'll actually produce a video around it. I think you'll find it interesting. You need to do your write-up and turn it into the assignment folder in D2L by Thursday of this week, okay? Um, and we'll take a look at what's in content. Our discussion post this week has to do with human resource management, where we talk a little bit about unions. I will tell you, you need to read the appendix in the text regarding unions. It's very clearly marked, and you want to read that over before you actually get into the discussion post. Unions will get talked a lot about in this particular class, which is a little bit of a mistake because unions are a very important part of managing workforces in the United States. And so learn a little bit about unions and what goes on with them. And we're going to talk about a particular situation that I want you to comment on as well. So again, your original post needs to be done by Wednesday at 11:30, and then your reply to somebody else's post uh, on Friday of this week. Now, your posts that you, for the most part, that we did last week, talking about planning and were we prepared for COVID? Were really well thought out and well done. So I'm going to give you a lot of compliment you on a really nice job done on how you did those discussion posts. Okay, so keep that going in this next week. I think it's also a very interesting topic um, to uh, to address. And then I will bring it up one more time, even though I've put some other things out there, so you should be familiar with how we're doing this. Um, I messed up. I put the wrong due date on the test. I sincerely apologize for that. I hope I didn't create a lot of consternation for folks. I really don't. But so I did a redo on it. There's another test out there for you to take, and that'll cover you through basically through chapter 9 of the chapters that we've covered so far. And I'm also going to caution you that there's questions about financial statement basics, nothing heavy duty, just something to a few things to make sure that you're familiar with it. Okay. And that'll be due, not as it says here, the schedule that I have here says was due Friday the 10th. I put it due on Sunday. So, next Sunday, a week from today is as I produce this video. So, um, and if you need any help preparing for the test, certainly do not hesitate to reach out to me. I'm happy to help you with that and be ready to go. But I put out another video on that altogether, and that should help you with that. So let's just look under content real quick here. So I'm going to get rid of our schedule. So the content that we're going to cover is basically chapters. Well, we're really moving along now. We're on to chapter 8. We're going to talk about employee motivation and behavior. We're going to talk about and I'll go through that, and then chapter 9 and 10, so you can see what's involved with that. In chapter 8, this is a very important video to watch. the 7 signs of emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is a I'm going to say is a really important topic in management and in particularly from a human resource standpoint, is making sure we're hiring the right people. Emotional intelligence has become so important that a lot of companies have included questions that purport to you know get knowledge of a candidate's emotional intelligence as you ask them what kind of answers you get. And there's actual tests out there that people take for it as well. So it really is an important topic in the world of business, and it's something that I really want you to pay real close attention to because, again, it's talked about a lot. It's a really important topic in management, and consequently for your future careers. Think about how emotional intelligence comes into play. The good news I'm going to give you about emotional intelligence is that you can actually develop it. It's not something that is innate necessarily. It's something that we can learn. And so I would strongly suggest you take steps to learn about it. Okay. And then I also put out a Myers-Briggs test. If you've never taken one of those before, they're kind of interesting. You reduce your personality to four letters. So it's a real thing. People do it. I mean, a lot of companies use it as a screening device to hire people. Yeah, believe it or not. And those tests are super long. I mean, usually there's many, many, many questions in it, but the one I put out there is just kind of for fun. So you just kind of rip through it once and just see if you think you learn a little bit more about yourself by taking it. Don't worry about it if you don't believe me. But it's highly regarded and used pretty frequently. Um, and you're going to do a motivation exercise. The motivation exercise that we're going to do is explained in a video that I produced and is out there. You're going to actually fill out a Word document. Again, it's explained very well in the video. And then the setup for it is kind of covered through this PowerPoint presentation, although that's really put together and geared towards in-person classes. So, but you get the gist of it and what we're trying to go for in the exercise. Okay, so that explains chapter 8. A few people had brought up that there's some dead links out there. I'll fix these as I see them as I go along, but I want you to know that the PowerPoint presentations, I put them out there because people ask for them. They're not part of anything that we're going to be concerned with on the test. So if you never look at them, you'll be fine. All right. This class is not about doing lectures, so um, you it's not required that you look at them. So I don't want anybody to fret if those things are not there or if they don't follow them very closely because they're not necessarily designed just to look at and learn a lot from. Okay. All right. So that's chapter 8. Chapter 9. I'm sorry, chapter 9 here is we're going to talk about leadership. Leadership is not the same as management. A lot of times people think of those things as being interchangeable, and they're not. In fact, a lot of literature gets the topics confused pretty frequently. Leadership is what it is. Management is what it is. Management's more of a process. Leadership is a function within management, basically, is what it comes down to. So there's several videos out there. By the way, there is so much stuff produced around leadership content, books. My gosh, there's a book out every week about effective leadership, that kind of thing. So there's a lot that goes into it. Please read through that. You can take it for what it's worth. Um, I think there's some good videos that kind of simplify the topics a little bit. Theories of Leadership is a pretty good one to look at. How leadership affects decision making is an interesting one. You can kind of see the perspective on how it actually leadership styles matter. One I really like is this one by a well-known psychologist named Gary Klein. You can watch the very first part of this. You don't have to watch through the entire video, but you watch the very first part, and you learn about how we leaders make decisions under a time of extreme crisis. And he actually studied firefighters, and it's a really fascinating study and helps us understand how when we don't have the ability, you'll learn all about the decision-making process in a very logical uh, process of a series of steps, almost a linear series of steps that makes sense. We do those types of things all the time, but sometimes when you're in a critical situation, you don't have the luxury, let's say, of taking all that time to make the best decision. So you make the best decision based on other things. And Gary Klein does a very nice job of explaining that. So I definitely encourage you to watch that video, or at least the first part, maybe the first few minutes of it. You'll get the gist of it. Okay. And then the last chapter we're going to talk about is human resources. The thing I'll talk about human resources is that we clearly, most companies, if you think about the most heavily regulated areas of their business, and I'm going to leave out like pharmaceutical companies and people like that that are clearly regulated in a big way. But for most companies, the two areas that they're most subject to regulations are um, how you report things, from an accounting standpoint or a finance standpoint. Those things are highly regulated, but also how you handle human resources. And human resources is no small thing. There's a lot that goes on there. You're going to learn a lot about some of the laws that we live by and how that shapes is how human resources works. And I think you'll find that really, really an interesting discussion. Okay, so what I would do, and then I'm going to tell you is before you do the discussion post, read through some of this information about what happened in the state of Wisconsin as it revolves around unions. Again, read the appendix in the book. It's a really important one to read. So read the appendix in the book, and you'll get an understanding of what goes into labor unions. And then I want you to think about something that happened not too long ago in the state of Wisconsin. A governor by the name of Scott Walker fulfilled his campaign promises and um, just basically disregarded the state's unions, their employee unions, and they were up to that point very, very powerful in the state of Wisconsin, pretty much the same as what we see in the state of Illinois. So and it was just an amazing thing what he did and how that all worked. So my question is, let's not get caught up in the political drama of it, because there's some information here that might highlight the political drama. I don't think that's very interesting. What I think is interesting is, did the unions really act in an appropriate way? And that's what I'm asking for in the discussion post. Did they really exercise the power that they have? And I'd just be curious to get your take on that. It'll be kind of an interesting topic to take on in our discussion post. Okay, so there's a lot going on this week. I realize that. Um, and if you have any questions at all, certainly let me know. And good luck. Hope everything goes well here.